Praise the Lord. I hope all of you are doing good. I want to meditate on Job chapter 29, verse 4. Job chapter 29, verse 4. Let me read that. Oh, for the days when I was in my prime, when God's intimate friendship blessed my house. Job is telling that. Who's a real friend? Who should be our friend? That's what I want to meditate. John 15, verse 15, Jesus said very clearly, I have called you as my friends. So that is a desire of Jesus. It's not just an Old Testament concept. Job is telling with God he had an intimate friendship. We read in the Old Testament God calling Abraham as his friend. And Jesus again telling to his disciples very clearly that you are my friends. I have called you as my friends. So how to be the friend of the Almighty God? First of all, do we want to be his friend? First thing I wanted to share is John chapter 15 verse 14. Three principles to be the friend of the Almighty God. Number one is John chapter 15 verse 14. Jesus said, if you are my friends, you will obey my commandments. So if you obey God's commandments, you are God's friend. If you really are serious about your relationship with God and you want God to be your friend, just think, Almighty God, our friend, will surely obey. That's number one. Second thing that I wanted to share is actually from James chapter 2 verse 23. It says, Abraham believed in God and it was accounted to him as righteousness. And it says he was called as a friend of God. James chapter 4 verse 4 it says, if you have friendship with the world, it means you have enmity with God. Think through it. So three things what we learned. One, obedience is very critical for friendship. Jesus wants to be our friend. Number two, believing, which will lead to righteousness. Believing and trusting God for everything what he said. Because Jesus went to the extent of saying, I have told you everything what my Father has told me. John 15 verse 15. Last thing is that let's not have friendship with the world. If you don't have friendship with the world, you have friendship with God. One final thought. Let that be our prayer. Lord, I want to be your friend. Like Job said, intimate friendship with God. Like Abraham received the great testimony. He is a friend of God. God bless you. Have a great day.